Emilia Hart stepped out of the taxi and let Rome wrap around her like a silk scarf. Warm, perfumed with exhaust, basil, and old stone. Campo dei Fiori hummed in front of her. Fruit vendors shouting, espresso cups clinking, tourists fumbling with guidebooks. Somewhere within that din, she would find her first clue to the phantom that had yanked her across the continent. A rumored presentation copy of Shakespeare's lost play, The History of Cardenio, said to have surfaced in a Roman palazzo after 4 centuries of obscurity. She also expected to find Luca Ferri, and sure enough, there he was, 6 stalls ahead, dark curls gleaming in the late morning sun as he leafed through a stack of 17th century pamphlets. Emilia's pulse quickened with both irritation and something suspiciously like anticipation. She knew Luca the way a fencer knows an opponent's favorite feint. They had bid against each other at Sotheby's, outmaneuvered one another at book fairs from Boston to Mumbai, and traded barbed emails over provenance and pricing. He looked up, of course he felt her stare, and flashed the grin that had charmed half the antiquarian world. "Buongiorno, Hart," he called. "Come to pick through my leavings?" "Only the bits you're too blind to see," she replied, stepping between pyramids of artichokes to reach him. "Any luck?" "Nothing but mold and forgeries so far." He held up a pamphlet. "Though this does have a charming woodcut of a pig lecturing a bishop." Emilia stifled a smile, then got back to business. The story, a Jesuit scholar, brought a Shakespeare folio to Rome in 1614, just gained a corroborating reference, an inventory from the Oratorio San Filippo Neri. "Do you have a copy?" He raised an eyebrow. "You're sharing intel now?" "Consider it professional courtesy." "More like professional trap," she shrugged. "Believe what you like. I'm meeting someone who claims to have that inventory, a bookseller named Marco Balestra." Luca tucked the pig pamphlet back on the table. "Funny. I'm meeting Balestra too." So the dance began. They located Marco in a shadowed arcade behind the market, thin as a bookmark, spectacles fogged with humidity. He beamed at the 2 dealers and produced a faded ledger. "I may possesses what you both desires," he said in dialect-heavy English, "but I fear I have only 1 copy, and I have 2 worthies to please." Emilia and Luca exchanged a glance, then spoke in unison. "How much?" A bidding war would follow, Marco clearly hoped. But before numbers could fly, a tall, silver-haired man in a linen suit appeared, laid an envelope on the counter, and murmured, "Il dottore appreciates your discretion, Signor Balestra." He was gone before they could question him. Balestra unfolded the envelope. Payment. In full. Emilia felt a sinking sensation. Someone with deeper pockets had already claimed the prize. "Who was that?" she demanded. Marco's smile fell crooked. "A courier for Baron Ruggero Altieri." Luca swore softly. Altieri was a collector whose ethics slithered somewhere between dubious and criminal. Rumor said he employed facilitators who were as comfortable with burglary as bibliography. Balestra, sensing danger, shoved the ledger back into his satchel. "I must go now. Mi dispiace." He disappeared into the bustle. Emilia and Luca stood amid the aroma of parsley and sweat, their best lead evaporating. Luca ran a hand through his hair. "If Altieri's involved, we're late to the party." "We can still crash it," Emilia said. "Where there's a courier, there's a destination." He eyed her. "Temporary alliance?" "Truce," she agreed, extending her hand. "Expires when the folio's in safer hands. Preferably mine." He shook. "We'll negotiate ownership over wine." They hired a Vespa. Luca drove. Emilia clung to the sidebar on principle, rather than his waist. Clue 1. The courier's motorbike plate, which Luca had snapped with his phone. A database check at a friend's mechanics shop traced it to Palazzo Altieri, a Baroque mansion overlooking Piazza del Gesù. Dusk had thickened by the time they reached the palazzo. Its massive doors were shut, but scaffolding hugged one facade. Renovations offered entry points. Emilia scoped security cameras, while Luca picked the padlock on a side gate. They slipped into a courtyard fragrant with night-blooming jasmine. Inside, the palace groaned like a sleeping leviathan. Marble corridors, frescoed ceilings, and doorways draped with plastic tarps. Luca consulted architectural plans downloaded on his tablet. Altieri's library is on the secondo piano, north wing. They crept up a rear staircase. Avoiding motion sensors, Luca disarmed with a pocket device. At the library doors, Emilia's breath caught. Carved walnut panels depicting Athena and Mercury, guardians of wisdom and commerce. Appropriate. Luca produced a graphite pick and coaxed the antique lock open. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, ladder tracks, and domed skylights greeted them. Spotlights glowed faintly, left on to show off the grandeur. In the center, an exhibition case under glass. Within lay the ledger they had sought. Balestra's inventory, Emilia whispered. Altieri moves fast. Luca scanned the case, alarmed. But look, no folio. Maybe the inventory mentions where Cardenio went. If we can photograph it, footsteps. They ducked behind a bookcase as two men entered, the silver-haired courier and a younger guard. The courier unlocked the case, removed the ledger, and set it on a reading desk. He began leafing through, dictating notes in rapid Italian. Emilia's pulse drummed. She mouthed a plan to Luca. Distract, steal. He nodded. While the courier and guard conferred over a map, Luca slipped to the fuse box he'd spotted in the corridor. A click, and the room blacked out. Alarms chirped, then died, Luca's jamming device at work. In the confusion, Emilia darted forward, snatched the ledger, replaced it with a folio-sized cookbook from a nearby shelf, and slid back into darkness. By the time emergency lights sputtered on, she and Luca were gone. They regrouped in a tiny cafe near the Tiber. Lights dim, patrons absorbed in televised football. Emilia laid the ledger on the table between them. Inside, a 1614 entry. Un volume di tragedie inglesi, donato dal signor Guglielmo Scacchi, conservato sotto custodia del Collegio Inglese. William Shakespeare rendered as Guglielmo Scacchi, gift to the English College. The Venerable English College, Luca murmured, a seminary for Catholic exiles, still operates on Via di Monserrato. Emilia traced the inked line. And look, marginal note, added in 1798, moved for safekeeping to the Archivum Arcangeli, catacombs of San Callisto. That's outside the Aurelian walls, Rome's oldest Christian burial site. Luca's eyes gleamed. If that folio survived the Napoleonic pillaging, it could be entombed beneath acres of catacombs. Emilia felt the thrill that kept her in this cutthroat trade. The whisper of parchment across centuries, the chance to touch genius. But another sensation surfaced, gratitude toward the man opposite her. Rival, yes, but also ally, witty, resourceful, smelling faintly of bergamot and vellum dust. Dangerous realization. Focus, she told herself. Altieri won't wait long to double-check the ledger. We've got, 12 hours before he deciphers the same note? Less if he discovers your switch-out is a cookbook of Sicilian eggplant recipes. Luca grinned. First light at San Callisto? She nodded. Outside, rain had begun to fall, slicking the cobbles. Luca walked her to her rented flat in Trastevere. At the door, hesitation gathered between them like fog. He said, Emilia, if one of us gets the folio alone, we photograph it, authenticate, then decide together. She surprised herself. The old Emilia would have plotted how to ditch him at the last minute. but something had shifted in the dim library corridors. He touched her hand. Deal. Then he stepped back into the rain. Sleep came fitfully. Images of broken tombs, ink-blotted pages, Luca's smile. At dawn, she strapped a flashlight, gloves, and moisture-proof sleeves into her satchel and met him by the Fontana dell'Acqua Paola, mist rising off the basin. He offered her a helmet for the Vespa, and they sped along the Appian Way as sunrise bled across the horizon. San Callisto's park was empty when they arrived. Tourist hours wouldn't begin for another 90 minutes. Luca produced forged permits identifying them as researchers from the British Library. A sleepy custodian unlocked a side gate and pointed them toward the archives of the Archangel, an underground repository not open to the public. They descended rough-hewn stairs into cool, damp darkness, lights flickering. Rows of metal cabinets lined the vault, interspersed with crumbling sarcophagi. A faint, earthy smell mixed with cedar oil. Emilia's heart hammered. She and Luca began searching drawers labeled Collegio Inglese, reverently lifting acid-free folders, scanning catalog codes. After 20 minutes, Luca whistled softly. Here, he held a slim parcel wrapped in dated brown paper, sealed with the college's crest. They laid it on a zinc work table, peeled tape. Inside, a folio format volume bound in maroon Morocco leather, gilt edges dulled by time. On the title page, in Florentine italic, "The History of Cardenio, as it hath been diverse times, acted at the Globe." Emilia's throat closed. It existed. They turned pages slowly. Stage directions in secretary hand. Dialogue between Don Cardenio and Lucinda. Marginalia, plausibly Shakespeare's own, confirmed by the distinctive long descender Y. She shot high-resolution images, hands steady despite tremors inside. Luca whispered, "We're looking at 20 million euros, conservatively." She stared at him over the folio, and 400 years of literary history. Their eyes locked, the vault suddenly small, air humming. He brushed a curl from her forehead. She didn't draw back. Footfalls echoed above, voices, harsh, hurried. "Altieri?" Emilia mouthed. Luca shut the folio, slid it into a backpack. Emergency exit follows the east catacomb. They killed lights, navigated by flashlight through tight tunnels crusted with ancient frescoes. The backpack thumped against Luca's spine, every bump a jolt to Emilia's nerves. Behind them, torch beams slashed walls. Altieri's men were on the scent. At an intersection, Luca hesitated. Emilia recalled a map panel near the entrance. Left branch curved toward daylight shafts. She tugged him left. They moved faster. Footsteps, splashing puddles. A voice rang out, "Fermatevi!" Gunshot, stone chips sprayed. They ducked into a side crypt, heartbeats roaring. Luca slipped the folio to Emilia. "If they catch us, one must get it out." She clutched it. "I'm not leaving without you." He smiled crookedly. "Rivals don't make good martyrs." "Then quit being my rival," she hissed, terrified but earnest. He blinked and kissed her. A swift collision of lips, adrenaline tasting and real. "Deal," he said. Shouts drew nearer. Luca scanned the alcove, spotted a narrow vent. He boosted Emilia. She wriggled up, backpack first. From above, she reached down. He leapt, grabbed her wrists, and hauled himself through just as another shot cracked marble below. They crawled along the vent until it opened behind a maintenance shed. Morning sunlight hit Emilia's face like benediction. They dashed to the perimeter wall, scaled it, and landed in a grove of cypresses beyond the tourist gates. Only when they were safely in Luca's borrowed Fiat did Emilia notice her arms were shaking uncontrollably. Luca covered her hands on the steering wheel. "We made it," she exhaled. "Now what? The folio belongs to the world." not to a vault or an auction. Agreed, he said. The British Library has facilities and clout, but Italy will claim patrimony. Scholarly tug-of-war for years. But if two respected dealers presented it jointly, advocating open digitization, Altieri can scream theft, but we have documentation of illegal possession in his library. Plus, gunfire in catacombs tends to tarnish reputations. Emilia gave a watery laugh. We'll need lawyers. And champagne, he added. They hid the folio in a safe deposit box at Banca Nazionale, photographing every step for legal transparency. Then, exhausted and still vibrating with danger, they found a trattoria in Trastevere with checkered cloths and cheap Montepulciano. While waiting for pasta, Emilia checked the photos on her camera. Luca watched her, eyes soft. You realize this will define our careers. Our careers? She teased. I thought we quit being rivals. He traced the rim of his glass. Partners, then. In business. Maybe in life. She felt warmth spread wider than the wine's reach. I've spent years treating acquisition as combat. But today, sharing the discovery, running for our lives, I didn't think about beating you. I thought about not losing you. He slipped his hand over hers. Same. Plates arrived, steam curling upward. The window framed a sliver of Rome. Terracotta roofs, church bell tolling. Emilia raised her fork. To Cardenio, the play that reunited lovers. And to us, Luca added, clinking glasses. Weeks rolled into months of negotiations. Headlines exploded. Lost Shakespeare, play found in Rome catacombs. Italian Ministry of Culture thanked independent scholars Emilia Hart and Luca Ferri for their integrity. Digital facsimiles went online within a year. The physical folio toured London, Florence, and New York under bulletproof glass. Altieri faced charges for illicit trafficking of cultural heritage. Balestra, offered immunity, testified that the Baron had planned to smuggle the folio to a private vault in Liechtenstein. Through it all, Emilia and Luca navigated press conferences, academic panels, and legal hearings side by side. At night, they retreated to a modest apartment overlooking Piazza Navona, shelves already sagging with joint acquisitions. They argued, as lovers do, about cataloging systems and how many espressos a day constituted addiction. But they no longer fenced with suspicion. Their blades had become waltz steps. On the anniversary of their catacomb dash, they returned to San Callisto, this time with official permits. Beneath the same stone vault, they placed a sealed letter in an archival box. To the future seeker who opens this, know that the greatest treasure buried here was not the book we carried out, but the hand I held while carrying it. Signed, Emilia Hart and Luca Ferri. They sealed the box and left it for some distant bibliophile to find, a whisper across centuries. As they emerged into sunlight, Emilia looked at Luca and saw Rome reflected in his eyes. Ruins and roses, secrets and laughter. She realized the city had given her two wonders, a lost voice of Shakespeare and a partner who spoke her own. And she knew, with the certainty ink gives parchment, that both would endure.